3 days after I moved into my cabin, somebody pounded my front door hard enough to rattle the glasses in the sink. I opened up to a woman in mirrored shades with a death grip on a clipboard, and 2 guys flanking her like backup. And in that cool morning voice she said, "I'm Carla Whitmore, president of the Pine Hollow Bluffs Association. Your land belongs to the community." I actually laughed because I'd closed on the place in Blue Alder, Montana, 72 hours earlier, and my biggest crime so far was parking my Ford crooked. Then I realized she wasn't joking, and the guy with the county badge was already nodding like we were halfway to the verdict. I let them in, mistake number 1, and watched Carla lay out a dozen violation notices like a blackjack dealer who knew the house always wins easements, parking position, utilities, landscaping, septic, the whole menu all filed within 48 hours of my deed. Recording all stamped and official, and she slid them across my coffee table with a smile that said, "This won't take long." I'm Mark Ellis, corporate attorney out of Chicago, a guy who used to calm multi-million-dollar tantrums with a 4-paragraph letter, and I told myself this was small-town paperwork. A speed bump, you know what I mean, but the panel at the First County Arbitration heard my case. Thanked me for my carefully tabbed precedents, then ruled 6-3 against me, because, as Carla's people like to say, community standards and walking out of that building, I felt it not a dispute a machine. It started grinding right away. Inspections on a schedule, imaginary utility concerns that somehow cost real money, a tax review that wanted to peek at everything I'd ever filed, and maybe my blood type while they were at it. Mornings got tight in my chest, nights got loud in my head, and clients began to peel off with polite messages about reputational risk. One of them gave me 47 seconds on the phone. Yeah, that happened. Lena, my wife, watched me pace grooves into the floor and said quietly over a stack of folded towels, "Maybe we sell. Maybe we go. Be happy somewhere else." And she wasn't wrong. Happiness likes quiet. But something about the way Carla said, "educational" at my door, lit a fuse in me. I didn't want to run from a smile like that. The first crack in the machine showed up after dark, a soft knock like someone practicing bravery. Ray Morales, local contractor, eyes tired, conscience awake. "I probably shouldn't be here," he said. "But I heard things at the association office, that Inspector Grant Pruitt owes his job to Carla, and there are maintenance invoices for work that never happened. Fences fixed 3 times on paper cameras billed and never hung. We spread copies on my table toner still warm, and the pattern looked like one of those puzzle pictures you can't unsee once your brain clicks. Favors with strings process as punishment. I called June Park, my old law partner, and she looped in a county prosecutor named Leah Sandoval, who didn't do drama. She did evidence. "Bring me dates, names, money flows," she said, "then we'll talk about conspiracy." We brought patterns first. 2 previous owners hit with the same 12 violations in 2 days routine, both from out of town, both professionals. One sold at a loss and fled to Arizona. One held for a year and left, after back-to-back environmental complaints made repair work impossible. And we brought paper next permits, ledgers, HOA emails that smelled like script notes for a play called How to Make Someone Quit. Meanwhile, the public theater cranked up a lodge meeting with muffins laid out like conflict could be sweet. Carla at the mic telling our neighbors I planned evictions and rent hikes, lifting a thick folder and purring. "We've done due diligence on Mr. Ellis's past." People turned and looked at me like I'd grown antlers, and June squeezed my sleeve and whispered she's bluffing. Maybe she was, but fear doesn't care. Fear moves in and rearranges furniture. I kept working, pleaded my case, quietly. Collected names and dates ran under the pines at night until my lungs remembered how to breathe. And then came the county hearing that felt like a storm about to break both sides, packed in Carla with her clipboard army and character witnesses who swore I was a portfolio in a flannel shirt, me with Ray, with Leah with June, and a banker's box full of boring truth, the best kind. Carla went first, rolling out emails, chuckles a little. Righteous, bah. And when the room had that shared nod, like the narrative was set, June stood calm as winter water and said, before we weigh association complaints, we need to clarify ownership. And she laid down the master deed like a royal flush. The original developer defaulted during the crash. The ground lease and common property were auctioned to a holding company I purchased last spring, which means the roads, the utilities, the underlying land for all 52 lots, including the parcel under Carla's cabin, are mine. It didn't explode with cheers. It landed as silence, that heavy kind that tells you everyone's rewriting their story. At once. Carla's clipboard slipped. Grant wiped his forehead, and you could see neighbors do the math. We've been filing violations at our landlord. Then Carla snapped back with a pivot worthy of television. And this is what I've been warning you about: corporate landlords using tricks to squeeze working families. And for a second, she almost spun the room back to her gravity. I didn't gloat. I didn't announce. I own everything. I just breathed and waited, because patience is what bullies hate. And the next week, her diehards marched into a new strategy. Habitability complaints by the stack coordinated rent delays. Then the ugly stuff. The community mailbox cluster smashed, so seniors had to drive 20 minutes for their prescriptions. The playground slide carved, so it peeled little hands. The loop lights killed at 9 sharp. It wasn't hurting me, it was hurting them. And the people who had nodded through speeches started to whisper in grocery aisles, church parking lots. The feed store line. This isn't protection. This is vandalism with a slogan. Ruth, a widow on Cedar Bend, stood at a meeting and said it plain. I nearly fell in the dark. That's not community, and the room felt the floor move. Grant asked to see Leah, not off the record after all, and he brought a folder with shaking hands. I was told where to look, when to look. What to write, I did it because I owed her. I'm done owing. And that's when subpoenas started walking on their own. The county accountant found invoices to a maintenance company that lived in a P.O. box and a nephew's boat money. Triangulated emails matched dates lined up. The grand jury returned 14 counts with more. Coming embezzlement, conspiracy filing false reports, witness intimidation. The works and the morning deputies walked Carla out of her cottage in sunglasses and a sweatshirt. The mountain air felt cleaner, like the valley finally exhaled. The trial cracked us and then stitched us up. Different people testified about favors that felt like hugs. Until you read the fine print. A clerk who got help on a mortgage right after she learned how to misplace a file. A coach whose kid's scholarship arrived with an understanding about letters of support. It wasn't envelopes in alleys, it was casseroles that came with invoices. And when the verdicts hit, guilty straight through, the judge handed down 6 years and $700,000 in restitution. Not a speech, just numbers that take a long time to pay. The association dissolved itself and rebuilt into something that put honesty over theater meetings got boring, which is the highest compliment you can pay a neighborhood. Ray's business crawled back, Lena started making pancakes on Sundays again. The kids in the subdivision flew down a brand new slide, and for the first time in months, I slept like I wasn't bracing for a knock. If that were the end, we'd have a beau. But life ties knots. You have to keep working at sentencing with the murmurs rising like a wedding. Carla turned in those cheap sunglasses and found me in the back row. She mouthed 3 words. I read loud and clear. "Tell them Chicago." And that landed like a pebble in my shoe. Not fatal, but it changes your walk. Years ago, I wrote a clause in a hospital network deal that closed a small clinic. I told myself the math saved more lives. Somewhere else,